Don't you remember the science lab Christmas party? Hello everybody, JD here. Welcome back to another episode of the Star Trek Project. And in this episode we move on to episode 9 of season 1, Dagger of the Mind. In this episode, the Enterprise goes to the penal colony on Tantalus V, where inmates receive a unique treatment. However, there's a problem, because it appears one of the inmates has escaped. However, it turns out it's not an inmate, but one of the doctors. But he's gone a bit crazy. So Kirk goes down to the planet's surface with Dr. Helen Noel to investigate. A lot of the early episodes have a lot of kind of creepy behavior, but this one is kind of expected because they're at this penal colony that uses psychiatric methods to try to rehabilitate the inmates. And so, yeah, you definitely expect strange behavior, but it doesn't really have that much. This episode has a few fond memories for me. Of course, all the screaming, the crazy behavior of Dr. Van Gelder, and the really interesting interaction between Kirk and Dr. Noel. I think that central to this episode is the relationship between Kirk and Dr. Noel. You see, they met at a Christmas party. And I guess some things didn't really happen the way that they wanted it to. So they have a very tense relationship. So they aren't really getting along very well. The scene in the transporter room is quite memorable. At first you'd think, oh my god, Kirk is seeing a beautiful woman. But it turns out it's more like, oh my god, not her. He really did not want to work with her. It's quite obvious. Doesn't matter what she looks like. You know, Kirk likes his beautiful women. But in this case, it was more of a difficult personality for him to deal with. You see, she's actually quite insubordinate in this episode, which you wouldn't really expect so much in like military setting. But she does argue with him a lot. Mariana Hill's portrayal of Dr. Helen Noel is actually quite good. I liked her performance. Also, William Shatner's performance as Kirk was fairly good, although at one point in this episode he does scream a lot, and it's kind of silly. Very awkward scene, I thought. Well, you know how Shatner acts, right? He can do some very strange screams. Morgan Woodward is actually pretty good as Dr. Simon Van Gelder, although he does go a bit over the top when he's crazy. He does seem crazy, but you could actually see the pain in his eyes in this episode. It's actually quite good. And then James Gregory as Dr. Tristan Adams, he's actually quite good too. Now, overall, I thought that the acting in this episode was fairly good, except for the over-the-top screaming. Overall, I thought this was a very good episode, except for one huge problem. And this actually goes into the nitpicking a bit here. This is before I get to the nitpicking section. But, you see, Dr. Adams doesn't seem to have any kind of motivation for what he's doing. I didn't understand why he was doing this. Maybe I missed something in the episode, I don't know. But I couldn't see any motivation for it. It has to be one of the weakest villains in Star Trek, I think. So overall, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a good episode, but with a huge hole. It really could have been better, I think. And now for the nitpicks and other things I've noticed. Actually, there aren't that many nitpicks in this episode, so I thought it was quite good. However, one of the first things I noticed was the cargo containing Dr. Van Gelder that was beamed up to the Enterprise was destined for Stockholm, Eurasia. I just found that interesting. And you know I love my nitpicks about technology in this. Well, the log recorder on the bridge looks like a big black tape recorder with leather straps. It seems very old-fashioned. As this is a remastered version, there are some changes. When they're on the surface of the planet, you can actually see the rings of the planet, which I found was a pretty nice touch. As they're going down into the penal colony, they have to take this elevator that goes down really fast. And as the elevator was descending, it accelerated quite quickly. So Kirk and Noel embraced. I mean, they hugged. I thought it was kind of a silly situation, considering they are military. What kind of military officers would do that? Once we got down to the penal colony, we were introduced to Dr. Adams and his awful looking uniform. I mean, it looked like it's made by an amateur. The emblem on it looks so oversized and ugly. Frankly, it looked like someone taped a piece of, or not taped, but glued a piece of paper to the guy's chest. And from here we're introduced to the character Lethe. She's one of the inmates and she's gone through some treatments, but she seems oddly unemotional. Very strange behavior. And you've gotta love the inmates' uniforms. They look like they're straight from the 1960s. Lots of tie-dyed patterns and very brightly colored plaid. Kind of odd for a penal colony. This episode is also the first time we get to see the Vulcan mind meld. Now, Spock is very reluctant to use it, as it's very deeply personal because you're sharing minds. However, McCoy is insistent that he uses it. I found that very interesting, considering McCoy's kind of skeptical about these kinds of things, isn't he? As I mentioned before, Dr. Noel is way too argumentative. Anytime that Kirk issues an order, she argues against it. I can understand why Kirk is very irritated with her a lot. And then we get to the scene where Kirk is in the neural neutralizer. You see, when he's subjected to the beam from this thing, he kind of has this weird cry and laugh. Very odd looking. And finally, at the end of the episode, they leave the planet at Warp 1. This has been done before. What is the purpose of leaving a solar system at Warp 1? They're going to get wherever they're going in several years. They should be leaving at a much higher speed, unless they're only going Warp 1 within the system. But who knows? So, what did you think of Dagger of the Mind? Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of it. Also, let me know what you thought about Dr. Adams' motivation, because I just didn't see it. Help me here, please. If you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up, and also please subscribe right over here. You can check out the playlist up here. Here is the previous episode, and right down here is the next episode. So please check them out as well. So thank you for watching, and live long and prosper. See you in the next video.